Hi, everyone. I'm Tanera Bailey, President and CEO of the Sister Group. Thanks for joining us for our second Welcome Hangout for the 2015 Best Practices for Youth Conference. We had a great day yesterday with our hangout in the morning with, I think, 4 interns and myself. And then we had 2 really good workshops, one on including all youth, ensuring full access for youth with disabilities in your program, and then the final was developing democratic citizens with individuals from the Kettering Foundation and the Dannon Project talking about their work across the country doing deliberative forums. So this morning we're going to talk a little bit about yesterday's workshops, what we thought about them and our takeaways from them, and then also talk a little bit about today's content to get you ready and excited to be a part of them today. If you haven't registered, it's not too late. You can go to apyd2015.eventbrite.com and register, or for information, if this is after the fact and you're watching this, apydconference.sistergroup.org will allow you to see the recording. So let's start. First thing is the question of the day. Since yesterday's workshop focused on, one of them focused on including youth with disabilities, we'd love to hear from you about how you are making your programs more inclusive. So the question of the day is, are your youth programs and services inclusive for all youth? What are some ways that you or your agency can reach out to include those with disabilities? So we want to hear from you on Google+, on Facebook, on Twitter. Use the hashtag APYDCon and join that conversation. So I want to take a moment and allow the 2 people who have joined me today to introduce themselves. One you probably saw from yesterday if you saw the hangout, but we have a new person joining, so I'll let her talk and introduce herself and say which committee or what she's done leading up to this conference, and then Christian will get a chance to reintroduce himself to the group. So Charmaine?
Hello, everyone. I'm Charmaine Morgan, and I've been an intern with Sisti Group since the beginning of this year, and I've been working with marketing and registration. It's been an excellent adventure, just trying to market to everyone to get you all excited about this year's conference, and that's just a little bit about what I've done.
Charmaine took leadership on the promo video that many of you probably have seen, and if you haven't, check it out on YouTube. You can see it directly after this. It's also the trailer for this Google Hangout, so it's what you see first before you get started. So thanks to Charmaine for taking leadership on that. Christian, you want to introduce yourself again?
Yes, my name is Christian Kelly, and I am from the fabulous city of Winchendon, Massachusetts. Not quite a city, but I'll call it that for the sake of the conversation. I am also a part of the Marketing and Registration Committee. I have been the social media gnome that magically pops up different tweets and Facebook posts, and I've been really enjoying this week.
Great. So since we have 2 people from marketing and registration, why don't we talk a little bit about marketing the conference and how people can be involved. So what have you all been doing on Twitter, and how is the hashtag going, those types of things?
So we've been real creative, just coming up with different types of tweets that market the workshops, and we've been putting them out there for, I want to say, at least over a month now, just trying to get individuals interested, as well as, like you said, we've been promoting the video that that I created, as well as we also have different flyers that we've been promoting as well, as marketing. We also been reaching out to colleagues, trying to get them interested, sending out emails and different things of that nature. So that's just a little bit of what we've been doing to market.
Great. And I know, Christian, yesterday you were our person on duty, so you had live tweeting a lot that you had to do. I know for many organizations, particularly small nonprofits that might not be that familiar with using Twitter, what is kind of maybe something you took away from live tweeting? What are some things that you learned, or maybe what was good about the live tweeting yesterday?
The live tweeting was very easy because the information that we were getting from the presenters was amazing. Andrea Levant and the Kettering Foundation did just an outstanding job at talking about what they do. So, I mean, just paying attention to the information and putting it out there to reach a broad audience. And one thing that I did was also made sure that in Facebook I shared it with other colleagues of mine in the field of child attention and getting the beef, so to speak, of what they're saying and sharing all the good information and the good ideas that people have with that broad audience to verses out there, because the more ideas we have in the pot, the better outcomes we're going to have for the people that we serve.
Right. I think, as an organization, we're really focused on capacity building. I mentioned that yesterday, that it's even our mission to build the capacity of individuals, groups, and organizations to lead to lasting social change. And one of the things that's really great about social media is it allows you to reach people outside of a particular geographic location. So one thing about typical conferences is you're in that building, you're in that space, learning with your colleagues and networking. But for those people who don't have the resources or the invite or the network to be able to participate, they're excluded from some of the learning or the conversation. And one of the things that we really try to do with this conference is make it as accessible as possible. So people can attend from their desk, their home, but they also, if you just are unable to register, you can look on Twitter and participate in the question of the day. You can post on Facebook your response. And so the best practices are shared not only from the people who participate actively in the workshops, but also from the nation and the universe at large. People can join us even in these Google Hangouts and share key things that they're learning and taking away. One of the things I think that was really great about the live tweeting from yesterday is that you get the nuggets, the little tidbits that are really important from the presenters. So the key points that they made. Andrea talked about kind of these 4 key points that the inclusive program should have: accessibility, independence, dignity. Forgetting the last one. Do you remember what it was, Christian, by chance? Oh well, we'll think about it and we'll tell you in the end of before the end of the session. But if you can put those things out there and then everyone can just follow the hashtag, create a hashtag for your work. If you're doing a volunteer project or a service project, tell everyone to use the hashtag, and it allows for the conversation to not only be for those that are in the space, but also outside of the space. So again, our question of the day: are your youth programs and services inclusive for all youth, and what are you doing to make your agency or organization able to reach out to those with disabilities? So both of you, I know you work outside of your time with us as a SISHI group. Have you seen ways that your organizations, or have you seen really good examples of inclusiveness in programs or organizations that you volunteer or work with or interact with that you can share?
Yeah, I work for the Robert F. Kennedy Children's Action Corps, and I feel that especially in the past, since I've worked there in the past 3 years, we've done an excellent job at providing for the youth that we receive. We work with foster care youth and at-risk youth who are removed from their home or their placement. And lately we've been getting a lot of children on the spectrum, and so we've been including a lot of sensory items, a lot of sensory cards. We're also utilizing trauma-informed care phenomenally. And it's really important, because when people think disabilities, often they think whether physical or cognitive limitations. But a disability is an emotional disability as well, and to be able to provide for those kids who are very trauma reactive to loud noises, to the nighttime, to holidays, it's very important that the staff are very tuned into that and provide options and provide support for those youth. And I think that the Robert F. Kennedy Children's Action Corps is doing phenomenal work in providing for those youth. Great.
Please share that link, or if you have a website to that, since we're going to mention it later, so that people can look up the organization and see what they're doing. Charmaine, do you have an example?
Sure. Well, I work in a different capacity. I work with United Healthcare, which is an insurance company. However, I'm a community health worker, and we do excellent work with working with members to ensure that they receive the services that they need in the community. A lot of times, members are unable to go to the doctor's office because of transportation. So we help to ensure that they have transportation needs, different resources in the community. We just meet the members where they're at. People think exactly like you said about the exclusiveness of, well, if they have a disability they can't do X, Y, and Z, but sometimes it's just the small things that we can do to make a difference to help the members to be able to get the needs that to meet their needs where they're at. So even if it's having home health care come into their home to meet their needs. And I just think that it's an excellent job, especially working with insurance company that is ensuring that these members are receiving these services.
Yeah, I think that's so important because so often people can kind of not take advantage of things because of something as simple as just needing transportation, or like Christian mentioned, just making sure that you're aware of all of the spectrum of things that might be considered a disability or a difference in interaction. You know, if a holiday is a trigger for you, you know, thinking about PTSD and how individuals might react to that. Creating systems to be supportive of that is so important within organizations. I've spent the majority of my career in youth development-based work, and I would say that most were not as forward-thinking as the Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts of the National Capital is who presented Andrea Levant, like Andrea, we keep saying Andrea, but it's Andrea Levant, presented yesterday, and she presented as part of a panel in our 2012 conference, and this year when we're talking about this topic, I thought she'd be a really great person to be able to do a full workshop, and without a doubt, it was a really great presentation. And I think it was great to hear all the ways that Girl Scouts are trying to make their programs, their services, their troops more inclusive, so that no young lady can be excluded from the experience of being able to say she's a Girl Scout. And I think if we look at like recent events about Girl Scouts being open to transgender young people, we have a workshop about that later in the conference. I think they're just a really forward-thinking, as a former Brownie, I'm very excited to think that they've continued to be a really great place for young girls to participate in. In the afternoon, we had kind of a switching of gears, and we heard from Dr. Wanda Madison Miner, who's a research deputy at the Kettering Foundation and is leading a research study with 10 communities across the country, allowing young people who some people would label them, I don't know if they would label themselves as at risk, but they at some point maybe were not necessarily connected to institutions. Some were formerly incarcerated, some dropped out of high school, some are on the fringes of in other ways, allowing them to lead dialogues in their community around issues, things like education, community change, violence, access to resources, allowing these young people to build together a group and to have a deliberative dialogue. And the difference between a deliberative dialogue and a discussion is that you discuss options and you determine one outcome that everyone can agree with, which is a really great strategy for community change. It's a way to break down those barriers. I think we've seen often when people have differing opinions, it's hard to come to the middle, and so this strategy allows people to discuss the options if they went with option 1 or they went with option 2 and come to that middle ground. And teaching young people this skill not only allows them to be able to deliberate in their own lives, but we saw such growth in these young people over the course of the year. The SISHI group was contracted to lead the Google Hangouts that the young people would do once they finished their forums, and so I had a chance to meet all of the young people across the country and do what I'm doing now and kind of lead and facilitate a conversation on Google+. And we saw the growth. I know, Christian, you were in the workshop. Did you have any takeaways or thoughts about it?
I was just very impressed with the young people themselves as they presented as these leaders of their communities, and it was very fascinating at their drive and their ability to really, whatever training they use must be so intensive because they're able to really get down to the problems in a community, and they realize that every community kind of has those same problems, and it's just a matter of getting together and solving them as a community. Mm-hmm. I think it was just very cool that these young people are taking ownership of their communities, and I think that we need to get more of those kind of youth community leadership building programs in rural communities and all over the country. If anything, it keeps them busy. It helps them put in, and it gives them a sense of ownership, where a lot of kids nowadays might feel like they don't have a voice, and I think that's very important. And the work they do is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think one of the young ladies, Marion, who had definitely seen her kind of grow throughout the course of the program. She mentioned that people were surprised to see them leading these conversations, and that one of the things that she really likes about the forum is she has a chance to have a voice, and for people to see that she does care, because often you look at young people, particularly young people who have been formerly incarcerated, our young parents, didn't continue high school, and you think, oh, they don't care about their community, or they're not interested in the things that are happening around them, but they see. And that's one of the things she said, is like, we see what's happening around us. It impacts us, it matters to us, we care about that, and by having these forums, it's a chance for us to say that. It's a chance for us to think about how do we solve these problems and to play an active role, because I think what we see a lot of times in youth development is this kind of creaming. We pick, kind of high-achieving students, and we provide them with college prep, or we provide mentoring to kids who are maybe just below the crack. They're at risk, but they're not severely at risk. Not that there's a spectrum that really matters. All young people should be included. But I think when we look at leadership and we look at, kind of those trainings that prep you for the next stage in your career in life, often these young people are excluded from those conversations and excluded from those opportunities. And so, the funny thing about yesterday is there was kind of this theme of inclusion. How do we include young people with disabilities? How do we include young people who have been kind of disconnected from traditional institutions? How do we make sure that all young people have a chance, all young people have a voice, all young people have an opportunity to participate in our programs? And so it was a great kind of finale to wrap up the day. What other thoughts? How do you all feel about the conference so far? Any other kind of what you expected, having planned it for several months? I know Christian's kind of new, but Charmaine, you're part of the original team. How has the experience been as you're looking at day 2?
Excellent. I do believe that it's been excellent. The workshops, I was only able to attend one or see one. However, it was excellent content, very informative. I believe that, like you said, it's the focus on how to get the youth involved is excellent. That's exactly what we need in this day and age, is to get the youth involved because they want to be involved. They want to have a voice. They want to be able to make a difference. And I think that that's the only way that we're going to be able to see a difference in the youth, is if we allow them to actually be a part of their plan. A lot of times we talk about treatment plans when we're in the mental health field, and allowing them to be a part of their plan, to make decisions for themselves, and then to allow them to see the follow through and to see how much they can make a difference in their lives. I think that's just the excellent thing. So I just think that this conference is awesome. It's a lot of great content that individuals are getting. It's very easy, like right now I'm on my lunch break and I'm able to come in and have a conversation with you guys and still work. So I think that it's excellent way for individuals to be able to still go about their day and to be able to get more information and be able to put this information in their work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Christian, did you want to say about your experience so far?
I'm really blown away with the presenters and their. It's not just them selling something. It's not them, hyping themselves up. There was some very good information. I feel like Andrea's disability etiquette was amazing because it's things that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis. Just how to address somebody that may be coming across a barrier, or how to how to offer help without offending somebody. And it's very important that a theme that we talked about yesterday was acknowledging your own ignorance about certain things. And I think that's a perfect example that people don't often think about. A simple thing like opening a door. I open a door for everybody, and that might be viewed as disrespectful by some people. And it's like realizing that's like, wow, I have to be aware of that. So the information has been just phenomenal, and the delivery has just been great.
Yeah, I think both of you hit on some of the goals of the conference. One, Charmaine, in mentioning that, you can do this from wherever you are. In between running errands, you can sit down and learn something for an hour and then go back to your life. One of the challenges I've seen from a professional standpoint is there's so many great conferences, and I don't think this takes anything away from the in-person interaction that happens in a place-based conference. I think there's still a need for that, but I think there's also a need for ongoing professional development. And for many organizations who don't have the resources or can't send their entire staff to across the country to participate, allowing them to listen for an hour about how to make their program more inclusive, and then immediately after you can sit down with the people who are going to make the plan and talk about what you learned, allows you to implement faster. I think one of the things that happens sometimes with travel to conference is that knowledge loss. When you get on the plane, you kind of forget everything, or it was so much that you took in for 3 days. Now you're like, I don't even remember, because you're coming back to 17 million emails. If you're like me, your inbox is kind of a nightmare. I know the interns know that I was traveling last month, and I'm still trying to get out of the hole that is my email. And so sometimes I think the travel piece is actually a detriment to you being able to implement all the really great things that you learn in the conference. And so that's one great thing about this conference. The other is that we really tell the presenters, and we really try to enforce to the presenters, that this is not about selling your program. It's not about getting up here and doing brand identity and pushing how wonderful your organization is. This is about best practices, what you've learned, what strategies you have, and how others can implement them. The big thing that happens with social change efforts is somebody tries to take ownership of it. They say, oh, we figured this out, and they try to claim it like it's an invention, like it's Google, and like you can brand it. But when you're trying to create change, everyone should know it. If it works, let's all share it. And so the way that we tell the presenters is, how can others do this? You can talk about your organization and how you're using it, but the takeaway should be how people can learn what you're doing and implement it themselves. And I think, at least so far, we've really had that be consistent in the presenters that we've included in this conference and this event. So we're looking forward to today's. We have 2 other workshops today, one at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is an introduction to human trafficking, and it's actually being presented by a former SISHI intern. She's a doctoral student at Nova Southeastern University. She works for the International Rescue Committee, and she has become a leader in South Florida around this topic of human trafficking. She's kind of known for her knowledge on this topic, and it's something that I think a lot of youth organizations kind of don't think about, but is a major issue in the United States and interacts in schools and health organizations and our child welfare system in ways that we would not even imagine. And so this is very important. It's very timely, and I think she has a ton of information that she'll be able to share on how organizations and people can be knowledgeable about this issue. And in the afternoon, we have a workshop by Matt Calvert from the University of Wisconsin about place-based youth development in communities and looking at how communities can engage youth in their leadership and in their activities. So it kind of builds on the work from yesterday with the Kettering Foundation about how to engage young people in the work that's happening in your community and how they can be more involved. And so it's great to hear from researchers and people who are doing this in their day-to-day work. I guess that's kind of the theme for today, is kind of how these organizations are implementing that. So again, that's 1 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Eastern for the two workshops. If you haven't registered yet, you still can, still join us. No issue around that. I'm going to try and find the question of the day one last time. Are your youth programs and services inclusive for all youth? What are some ways that you or your agency can reach out to include those with disabilities? And don't forget, use your hashtag APYDCON in all your tweets, updates, and posts, and we'll try to retweet and share with as many people as possible. It's been a great conversation. Christian and Charmaine, anything else you'd like to share?
Look forward to seeing you guys later.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Thanks. Have a good day.